Don't you think that zombie movies have become a little bit like those fast food franchises? You know, they've popped up everywhere and every single one offers you something different, something tasty. But in the end, all you end up getting is the same bland, regurgitated slop. Now what you need to do in this situation is you need to return back to the roots and get yourself a plate of mom's home-cooked wholesome nosh. Or at least the zombie movie equivalent. Now for today's Watch It, Skip It or Treasure It horror movie, I'd like to welcome you to New Zealand. The date, 1992. And excuse my terrible accent and the strange thing I keep on doing with my mouth as I attempt it. Dead Alive or Brain Dead in his home country of New Zealand was shot in 1992 and directed by Frodo's buddy Peter Jackson. It is hailed as one of the most ridiculously gory horror movies of all time, as well as one of the funniest. Now the story is as bonkers as it gets. Lionel is a timid young man living with his overbearing mother Vera, who goes to the local zoo one day and gets herself bitten by a rat monkey. Now if you've ever been bitten by a rat monkey, then you'll know that you turn into a zombie afterwards. And this is exactly what happens with Vera. So she starts infecting all the townfolk, including Lionel's love interest, Paquita. Now it is up to Lionel to stop the zombie outbreak and also save the day. I told you it was a bonkers story. So if you're in the mood for a good laugh, a few buckets of gore, as well as an old lawnmower that turns zombies into fresh smoothies, then this movie is for you. So grab your popcorn, as well as your bath bag, because for this, you'll need both. Now, I watched Dead Alive twice as a teenager and once more recently, and I've always found the movie to be different to other zombie movies in a few ways. For one, at least for its time, Dead or Alive was more comedic, whereas other zombie movies were more serious in tone. Its over-the-top violence and gore deliberately plays more for the laughs than the scares. Another aspect that sets Dead Alive apart from its undead counterparts is its great use of practical effects. I mean, so many zombie horror movies today heavily rely on CGI, and you end up with these movies that are bloated, lifeless, and heavily laden with CGI. Dead Alive, however, makes great use of makeup, prosthetics, and puppetry, and this gives its characters and the film a unique, hilarious, and dare I say, even joyful touch. Now, I keep mentioning the comedy, but calling Dead Alive simply a comedy is a little bit too generic, because this isn't really a slapstick comedy. What Peter Jackson does here is he almost creates his own brand of comedy and infuses it with a surreal, absurdist touch. In fact, the characters in this movie are so bizarre, bonkers, and wacky that I more than once found myself wondering if the popcorn I was eating was spiked with magic mushrooms. This unique stroke of comedy, mixed in with the over-the-top gore and whack-job violence, sets this movie apart from those other hordes of zombies that have become predictable and straightforward. Now, this movie was shot in a shoestring budget, and yes, you can kind of see it, but personally, I felt that this added to the movie's charm. Also, don't expect serious horror or some profound character development. This is just not that kind of movie. But if you are in the mood for a horror comedy, know that you're getting an offbeat one at that. Now, this movie is filled with many memorable moments, but my personal favorite has got to be where our kung fu priest, Father MacGruber, now faced with a horde of zombies, shouts out, "It's time for some divine intervention." Just before unleashing another round of ridiculous karate kicks, he proclaims that he kicks ass for the Lord. Brilliant and quotable. Come to think of it, a couple of today's Bible salesmen could probably do with a line like that in their sales pitch. But the film's most iconic scene is definitely the now famous lawnmower scene, where our protagonist Lionel makes bloody use of an old lawnmower to chop up a horde of undead creatures. It's a masterpiece in gore, as well as crazy style comedy. Now, you might be wondering where Dead Alive sits in terms of scares. Well, for this, let's enter the meter of fear. Okay, so Dead Alive isn't actually scary, but this might be the only case where scoring a butter knife is not only a compliment, but weirdly appropriate. Dead Alive is a movie that some horror fans love and others hate, but it has become a cult classic, and it's easy to understand why. Its legacy can be seen in the future zombie horror comedies such as Shaun of the Dead and Fido, but it also pays respectful homage to the groaning shufflers of yesteryear, such as George Romero's classic Night of the Living Dead. Its zany charm has endured, I'm happy to say, and it's for this reason that Dead Alive should be watched, definitely not skipped, but it should go even further than that and receive its place amongst the horror greats. So today, Dead Alive gets its approval as a treasured gem of horror. Now, if you are a fan of the slick, big budget Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson rather than the grungier, old school zombie horror one, maybe you need to consider that Dead Alive is a lot more like Lord of the Rings than you think. One has an epic battle between gallant warriors and evil wizards, whereas the other is an epic battle of a different kind, one between a bumbling mommy's boy and his overbearing zombie mother. Now over to you, fan of horror. What did you think of Dead Alive? Let me know down in the comments. And if you like this kind of content, then shuffle on over to that subscribe button. Now I'm not quite done with zombies just yet. Next time I'm going to take a look at not the 10 greatest, but the top 10 most underrated zombie feature films of all time, at least according to me. And who knows, maybe Dead Alive shuffles its way onto that list. On that note, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for being there. Stay safe, stay happy, and most of all, stay horror. Ciao, everyone.